The security footage didn't lie. There was my daughter, collapsing on our front lawn, her blood sugar crashing fast, and Karen, dragging her diabetic alert dog, Atlas, into a van with no windows. My 10-year-old Serafina lying unconscious in the grass, her German shepherd fighting restraints as two guys in dark clothes shoved him inside like he was a threat, not a hero. What Karen didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that kidnapping a military-dependent service animal doesn't just trigger a neighborhood argument. It triggers a response she couldn't begin to imagine. But let me back up a bit, because before this turned into a federal case with agents, sealed courtrooms, and a tactical breach that would rattle the entire subdivision, it was just me and my daughter trying to live a quiet life. My name's Mark Talbot. Most folks around Willow Run Heights knew me as the quiet guy with the big camera and the older pickup truck that never quite fit in. What they didn't know was that the camera gear in my garage wasn't just for snapping blue jays and backyard deer. And I wasn't exactly freelance. I was military intelligence for 17 years, Navy trained, now operating under a different set of orders, one that involved keeping my daughter alive. Serafina's had type 1 diabetes since she was 6. And if you don't know what that means for a child, it's like walking a tightrope with no net every single day. But Atlas changed everything. He was no ordinary dog. His vest had more embedded tech than most patrol units I'd seen overseas. He could detect blood sugar shifts 20 minutes before they happened. That's not a guest hat survival. Atlas had saved her 12 times in 4 years. I kept the real extent of his training under wraps. Let the neighborhood think he was a smart pet. The truth? He was trained by a joint military medical program out of Annapolis. His loyalty wasn't just to Serafina, it was tactical, precise, nearly clairvoyant. Life was quiet mostly. That was the point. After so many years running hot, I thought Willow Run Heights might be a safe bubble to let Serafina grow up with some peace. But peace is an illusion when you live next to someone like Karen Blackburn. Karen was HOA president, queen of the clipboard, self-appointed guardian of suburban sanctity. She looked like she was carved out of Botox and pearls, always in pastels, always in heels, always smiling like she knew something you didn't. Her estate sat dead center in the neighborhood like a throne room, with security cameras on every corner and flower beds so symmetrical they looked AI-generated. But what most neighbors didn't know, what I didn't know at first, was that Karen had lost a daughter 5 years ago. Melody was her name. 10 years old. A diabetic emergency took her in the middle of the night, and Karen never recovered. See, when you lose a child that way, it changes you. Sometimes it makes you softer. Sometimes it makes you dangerous. For Karen, it turned into a vendetta against reminders of sickness, medical gear, anything that made her feel out of control. Service dogs included. The first real confrontation happened on a Tuesday morning. Serafina was practicing commands with Atlas on our front lawn. I was adjusting my gear on the back porch. Karen walked up like she owned the sidewalk, her heels tapping out a countdown to nonsense. "Mr. Talbot," she said, holding out a violation form like a summons. "You're in breach of Section 17.5, unregistered pets in community common areas." "He's not a pet," I replied calmly. "He's a federally protected diabetic alert service animal." Her mouth twitched. Not a flinch, but something flickered. Resentment. Maybe grief. But she kept going. "That creature poses a potential threat to the community. You'll need to remove it immediately." "Karen," I said, holding my ground, "federal ADA law supersedes HOA rules. You know that." Serafina, bless her, piped up from her wheelchair. "He helps me stay safe, Mrs. Blackburn. Do you want to see how he does it?" Karen stepped back like my daughter had offered her a loaded weapon. "Keep that animal away from me," she snapped. That was the moment I knew this wouldn't be a normal HOA dispute. This was personal. Dangerous. The notices started the next morning. Violations for noise from her glucose monitor. Complaints about the color of Atlas's vest. Fines for unauthorized medical equipment on visible display. All nonsense. But they piled up, each one designed to push us out, to isolate Serafina. I kept notes. Took photos. Built a folder like I was prepping a brief for an op. Because deep down, my gut knew Karen wasn't just grieving. She was escalating. Especially when I found raw meat laced with insulin scattered near our mailbox. Atlas refused to touch if this training kicked in. But the vet confirmed it. Someone tried to poison our dog. With the very medication that kept Serafina alive. That night, after I tucked her in, I made a secure call. It was time to bring in real help. Not cops. Not lawyers. People who could operate in gray space. Quietly. Karen didn't slow down. If anything, she doubled down. Cameras aimed at our front door. Neighbors coerced into filing complaints. Mrs. Cartwright down the street confessed Karen had threatened to fine her for speaking to my daughter. Then came the ambush. I had to leave town for a classified assignment 72 hours, in and out. Serafina was to stay with our neighbor, Ms. Rivera. Atlas would be with her the whole time. What I didn't know was that Karen had been watching, waiting. And as soon as my truck left the driveway, she made her move. Thursday afternoon. Serafina was on the lawn painting, light perfect. Atlas at her side, alert but calm. Two men in plain black uniforms approached with Karen striding behind them. "Excuse me," she said, loud enough for neighbors to hear. "We're here to remove an unlicensed animal. HOA order." Serafina's sugar had already started dropping. Atlas was alerting. She was confused, weak. The men grabbed Atlas. He resisted but was trained not to attack. They threw him into the van. Ms. Rivera called 911, but it was too late. When I got the call, I was 12,000 miles away. Encrypted line. Message read, "Daughter unconscious. Service dog missing. Immediate extraction authorized." I was on U.S. soil in under 12 hours. When I walked into Willow Run General in partial tactical gear, the nurse looked at me like I was a ghost. But my mission was clear. Find Atlas, stabilize my daughter, and bring the devil to justice. The FBI was already involved. My prior threat assessment had triggered a silent file. Agents had been monitoring Karen's digital activity. The searches, the emails, the private contractors. One GPS ping led them to her basement. What they found was a soundproofed room. Locked, padded, built for containment. Atlas was inside, traumatized, dehydrated, but alive. The raid was clean. Tactical precision. Karen screamed as they dragged her out. I was protecting the neighborhood. That dog was a danger. She was charged with kidnapping a military-dependent medical service animal, child endangerment, conspiracy, and terrorism. She got 25 years, eligible for parole after 15. Psychiatric evaluations revealed what I'd suspected: her grief had rotted into obsession. Serafina recovered. Atlas returned. Her vitals stabilized within minutes of seeing him. Doctors were stunned. I wasn't. We sued the HOA, settled out of court, used the money to start a foundation service animals for military families. Karen's old torture chamber? It's now a training center. That irony alone is enough to make me believe in cosmic justice. And Karen? After years of therapy, letters, and a visit from Serafina herself, yes, my daughter forgave her. She volunteers at the center. Redemption doesn't erase pain, but it can redirect it. Today, Serafina paints portraits of service animals. She speaks at schools. Congress. Atlas still checks her glucose every morning, tail wagging. His muzzle is graying, but his spirit's sharp. A hero in a vest. And me? I laid down the rifle for good. Found a mission that doesn't require camouflage. Just love, vigilance, and the kind of patience you only develop when you've seen the worst and still believe in the best. So now, I ask you, where do we draw the line between grief and tyranny? Between HOA order and federal law? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about what justice looks like in our neighborhoods and in our hearts. Because sometimes, protecting your family means going to war with the woman next door.